I'm glad you said that because, look, most of us in our lifetime can make $1 million working. You may not save it, but you can make it. And there's lots of billionaires out there. And, a trillion seconds ago, a trillion doesn't sound like that much because a million and a billion, they're obtainable, I guess. A trillion seconds ago was 31,688 years ago. Numbers are so big, it's unfathomable.
Say it again. A
31,688 years ago, Neanderthals stalking the plains of Europe is a trillion seconds ago. And we're adding that every 100 days. And we're adding 100 billion in interest payments roughly every 100 days as well. The numbers, it's the hockey stick phase where they start to go up parabolically. And to return from that becomes almost impossible.
Well, Ralph Pell calls it the banana phase. It goes parabolic up there.
In a recent conversation between Andy Schectman and Robert Kiyosaki, the looming threat to your cash in today's economy was underscored. With the US debt ballooning at an alarming rate of 1 trillion every 90 days, the value of your dollar diminishes rapidly. Schectman emphasizes the historical precedent set by Roosevelt's gold confiscation, urging caution against storing wealth solely in US dollars. Both Schectman and Kiyosaki advocate for diversifying assets into tangible stores of wealth like gold and silver, and forays into cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin.
So let's get back to gold, silver, and Bitcoin now. Would you mind telling us about Miles Franklin? But one of the most important things is that what your father taught you about what your deal with your father was. Because
the best gift I've ever been given by far. I make all my employees do it too, and they all thank me, and I thank my dad. It was the best. I think of you all the time when I think of this, because in talking to you all the time, you talk about getting out of the rat race, and that's part of your game, and that resonates with me, because how do you get out of the rat race? There are ways to do it. You've enumerated that many ways, many times. But to me, the best way I've learned personally to get out of the rat race is to pay yourself first. My father told me when I started the company that every 2 weeks, as a 19-year-old kid, I'll buy something metal when I get paid, or he'll fire me, that he wouldn't let me make the same mistakes that he had made. And I thought, well, if that's the only rule, I can deal with that. 34 years later, I look at that as the greatest gift I've ever been given. I've run the company myself for over 2 decades. He won't fire me anymore, but the promise I've honored, and I buy something every 2 weeks, and I don't look at gold and silver as an investment. I look at it as wealth. I think you do too. It's not something you buy to get wealthy. It is wealth. If you own enough, okay, you could be considered wealthy, but it's wealth. And paying yourself first is how you get out of the rat race.
The reason is because in 71, Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard, and the dollar became debt. And now our debt, exactly to say, every 100 days or 90 days, U.S. is increasing their debt by $1 trillion. How long? How you have a say? How big is $1 trillion? You always cite that.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because look, most of us in our lifetime can make $1 million working. You may not save it, but you can make it. And there's lots of billionaires out there, and a trillion seconds ago, a trillion doesn't sound like that much because a million and a billion, they're obtainable, I guess. A trillion seconds ago was 31,688 years ago. Numbers are so big, it's unfathomable.
Say it again.
31,688 years ago, Neanderthals stalking the plains of Europe is a trillion seconds ago. And we're adding that every 100 days. And we're adding 100 billion in interest payments roughly every 100 days as well. The numbers, it's the hockey stick phase where they start to go up parabolically. And to return from that becomes almost impossible.
Well, Ralph Pell calls it the banana phase. It goes parabolic up there. I first started buying silver in 1964 when I started noticing the coins had copper around them. And then I bought my first gold in 1972. I flew behind enemy lines in Vietnam to look for gold. And I realized I didn't know what gold looked like. So I was a helicopter pilot. And so I finally had to wait to go all the way to Hong Kong. And I'm in the streets of Hong Kong dealing with the Chinese. As you know, they're very smart people, very smart people. And I was getting an education in gold and silver and what I call real money. Gold and silver are real money. And so I bought my first Krugerrand. I had to pay $50 for an ounce. You know what I mean? But a few weeks ago, it was $35. And I still have that Krugerrand. I don't store it here in America. It's stored outside of Switzerland in another country. And the reason for that is, which is that the poster over your right shoulder is, Roosevelt confiscated people's gold. So it's being a little paranoid. My gold is not in America and it's in storage vaults outside of Switzerland someplace. So that's my story. And I don't save dollars. That's why I put savers or losers. And I save silver and I gold. And just recently, about 10 years ago, I started buying Bitcoin, and I look at the whole thing and people want to argue. I hear it all the time on YouTube. Which is better, gold or Bitcoin, or silver or Bitcoin? And I was laughing. Why do people argue about such stupid things? Just how many do you have? That's all that counts. How many ounces of gold, how many ounces of silver, how many Bitcoin or Solana or whatever you got? But they want to argue and debate it, and they don't have anything. That makes no sense to me.
Well, and I rue the debate. I mean, last time I saw you in person was in Vancouver, and I had lunch with our mutual friend Mark Moss and Natalie Burnell, and they opened my eyes in many respects to some of the things I hadn't been thinking about in Bitcoin. And before I take that any further, I'll just simply say that it has always been going all the way back to when Bitcoin was $400 a coin. I had a gentleman working for me named Andy Hoffman who also opened my eyes into Bitcoin, and we together wanted to build a bridge between the Bitcoin community and the physical metals community, because after all, the ideology in many respects is the same. The pushback against what's happening in the country with the monetary and fiscal policy, the decentralization, in other words, owning something that you hold physically that is not simultaneously someone else's liability. Now, that didn't work out so well at the time for various reasons, not because of the ideology, just because differences of opinion. But suffice it to say, my thinking is that we all come in the door for the same reason.
In continuation of their insightful conversation, Andy Schectman and Robert Kiyosaki delve into the symbiotic relationship between gold, silver, and Bitcoin. Schectman underscores the shared rationale behind investing in these assets, emphasizing the importance of diversification and hedging against economic volatility. Kiyosaki concurs, advocating for a portfolio enriched by allocations to all three, citing the unprecedented gold purchases by central banks globally as a testament to the enduring value of precious metals. Both experts stress the fallacy of pitting these assets against each other and urge viewers to adopt a holistic approach to wealth preservation.
And maybe the difference between the two is that the Bitcoin community wants to profit.
Let me add this. The reason we buy gold, silver, and Bitcoin are the same reason. It's not any different. Just tell me how many ounces you have. Yeah.
Well, that's the point. And I think we should be complementary to one another instead of adversarial. And I think anyone's portfolio that is rich in Bitcoin would be stronger if some of the profits were put into gold. You're hedging your bet. And I'll simply say this, that I don't delegitimize Bitcoin at all. In fact, since I last saw you, I've been buying it along with gold and silver every 2 weeks. And that's new to me because I don't want to miss out on it. And I don't want to miss out on what could be a global trend. But, it's never really been my focus. But I'm open-minded enough to add little bits of it on a habitual basis. But you're right. I mean, I think that if you look at the central banks of the world, which are the most well-informed traders, forget about how wealthy they are. They've been buying gold at a level the world has never seen before. So there is legitimacy to taking some of the profits in cryptocurrencies that people have made a fortune and put that into something that's stable and that the biggest money, smartest money, most well-informed traders in the world are buying. It doesn't have to be, they don't have to be mutually exclusive of one another. I think your portfolio becomes a hell of a lot stronger. As you've been recommending for years now, having allocations to all three, instead of just only looking in one direction, broaden your horizons, you'll probably end up having a stronger portfolio.
What I want to say is you don't have to make something wrong to be right. I mean, it's really stupid, but that's what causes war. I'm right, you're wrong. And these assholes who are debating gold and silver and Bitcoin and Solara and all this other stuff, it's just about a bunch of hot air. And that's the point is I buy gold, silver, Bitcoin, and I just bought some Ethereum simply for the same reason. Our money is fake. Our money.
Because you get it, and you see the bigger picture. And I think we're in the minority. People.
So let me
do.
say this much. I think his name is Michael Saylor. His micro strategies and all that. I mean, he's putting billions into Bitcoin. Billions. I got my 60 coins, and he's got billions. I'm going, holy mackerel. And but he says, what do you call a person who saves fiat currency or the U.S. dollar? Poor. And, and that's what's happening today. People with old ideas are getting poorer and poorer and poorer because, as you know, my whole shtick is, what does school teach you about money? Nothing.
As we conclude today's dialogue with Andy Schectman and Robert Kiyosaki, remember the key takeaway. Diversify your portfolio with gold, silver, and Bitcoin to protect against economic uncertainty. Subscribe for more insights, like and share this video, and share your thoughts in the comments.